Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. It's a big week, not only because we are back at Empower Field at Mile High, but the Broncos are looking to extend their home winning streak, which currently stands at 7. They improved to 4-2 and swept the road trip before returning back from across the pond. And honestly, I'm really excited for Broncos country to see this team. I feel like we haven't seen them in so long. When I spoke to Nick Bonito, he was like, I feel like it's been so long since the last Monday night game. So we're really excited for that. We're going to talk a little Super Bowl 50 reunion, the honor of Demaryius Thomas entering the Ring of Fame, and break down this matchup against the Red Hot Giants. I'm going to say it because they're red hot. How you feeling?
Ooh, red hot.
I mean,
okay.
I think we broke the Eagles because you saw what they did.
It's been 2 games. We'll see. They won the Super Bowl. I think they'll be okay. Yeah, the Giants are they're a little spicy right now. They got Jaxson Dart, Cam Scatabo doing, backflips and whatever else he's got going on.
Scatabo.
So yeah, they're flying high right now. But excited to break that down in a minute. But like you said, a big week here in Denver. The Super Bowl 50 reunion, the 10-year anniversary of that championship team. And Lisa, we like swag.
We do like swag. And I mean, for the reunion, the best swag has to come out. So of course I'm rocking it. Let me show the people. This is part of the item of the game that will be on sale at the team store. So Broncos Country, make sure you check that out. It's part of a Super Bowl 50 capsule. Item sold separately. And you can get this amazing cardigan sweater or Super Bowl 50 hat, which is a little, kind of matches. And this Super Bowl 50 chain right here, not the back, the front.
That's really nice.
If you're listening, make sure you guys head over to our YouTube channel so you can watch.
You have no idea what we're talking about.
Exactly, but if you go to YouTube, you can visually see all the amazing items that will be on sale at the team store. This is for you, because you always say you don't get anything, so I'm sliding that over to you.
Thank you.
Your hair looks amazing, so I'm not going to give you the hat.
It normally
I
does.
will stay with the hat.
But that's not all.
That is not all. I'm going to toss that over to you, though, because,
Yeah, we always like to tell people to be there early, and I should say, it's worth noting, we'll talk about it more in a second, but at 11:30 outside the stadium, Ring of Fame Plaza, south side of Empower Field at Mile High, there will be Demaryius Thomas's pillar unveiling. So make sure you go to that. Dave Logan's emceeing. Demaryius' parents will be there. I believe head coach Kerry Kubiak will be there. So a chance to see some folks and hear from them and see Demaryius' Ring of Fame pillar. I like that they've transitioned that part of things to be on game day, to involve the fans. It used to be kind of like a Friday night thing at the stadium. It was media only and the families. And it was still cool, but when you bring the fans in, it kind of elevates it to a whole new level. So 11:30, be there. And then when you can, get inside, because I don't know how many, but the first however many thousand
of lucky fans
are going to get this, which you will see when it switches to me, a Super Bowl 50 world champion medallion, chain, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to wear it for the episode. Yeah. It's pretty sweet.
It is pretty sweet. It's heavy.
It is heavy.
I mean, you can hear the quality of this.
I've heard Akib promise to leave these ones alone.
It's going to be really exciting to see Broncos Country rocking this. I'm putting it on right now. Hope it doesn't get caught in my hair. Woo, there it goes. I have so many things on. So here in Broncos Country, you can head to the team store for the Super Bowl 50 capsule item of the game. That each item sold separately. Super Bowl 50 hat, this amazing sweater, and as well as the chain that is massive. It matches with the massive hat. Oh, you're ready? Okay,
ready.
I stalled it out. All right,
got it on.
Talk to the people so they can see.
I'm trying to talk to them. I'm trying to show them the chain. Can they see it yet? Am I there? Now I am.
Your mic is covering it, though.
Oh, sorry. This is what we got to work with. Show up early to the game, get one of these. You'll this has got to be right up there with the coolest giveaways of the season, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
You're struggling over there.
Well, it's because I have a few chains on, so it's like I feel like we're about to drop an album, though.
got the hat. You got the cardigan. Wow. No, these are cool. I like these a lot. These are these might be the best giveaway I've ever seen. Is that? Yeah. I don't think we can hear you, but
yeah. Well, you can narrate.
Yeah. Elisa said, "Look at the back of my sweater." That's what happened.
I can't wait to see Broncos country rocking these chains and cheering and being super loud. Because Super Bowl 50.
Maybe I'll put them both on.
Oh my gosh, please do. I have multiple chains on, so you got to put multiple chains on.
How do I look? Do I look nice? Is this the most ridiculous thing that anyone's ever seen? You can't even see this one.
Hold on, you got to hold it up.
There we go. Let's come back to me, camera. Back to me. There you go. That's good stuff. You could look just like me. I'm going to wear this on game day, too. Maybe I'll wear it post-game if the Broncos get their 4th consecutive win.
Oh, my gosh. Imagine doing instant analysis with this on. I mean, look, Sunday is my birthday, so I feel like we can rock I need all the gear. I need all the chains. I need all the wins.
That's true.
I need all the dubs. But speaking of dubs, Super Bowl 50, I can't believe it's been 10 years since that Super Bowl happened. I was, of course, living in Los Angeles during that time, holding it down for Broncos country.
Do you like the Dodgers?
I love the Dodgers, okay? I think our fans know that by now. I think they know that by now. But Super Bowl 50 was one of those really special seasons. And, I went to a community event celebrating 88 Day, and I saw Super Bowl champion David Bruton, and he was almost shocked to think, like, I can't believe it's been 10 years. Like, he's like, I'm really excited for Alumni Weekend because he's like, I'll be honest with you, there's some guys I haven't seen since we won the Super Bowl, because trades or everyone goes their separate ways. And he's like, so it's going to be really nice. I think over the past, few seasons, the way that ownership has really reached out to alumni has been very beautiful to see. Last year, we had a great Ring of Fame ceremony, and this one's going to be extra special. I feel like it's going to be extra special for you, too, though, because you were here. You got to cover some of DT's career.
Yeah, and I want to talk about DT in a second because there's so much to say about him. But the Super Bowl 50 team, I think, I think it's a little easier to celebrate the 10th anniversary based on what the current team is doing now, and that, a few years ago, the Broncos were in kind of a tough place, had the drought from a playoff standpoint. You okay over there? You got chains getting all tangled up?
My chains got tangled up, but I'm good now. I'm good. I'm good.
But like the past few years, I think because the current Broncos were struggling, it made it was like a little bittersweet because it was like, oh, the Super Bowl team, but it's like, man, we haven't made the playoffs since the Super Bowl. Now that this team is doing better, made the playoffs last year, 4-2 right now, and contending, tied at the top of the division, I think it makes it a little easier to celebrate Super Bowl 50. So I'll start with that. But I think people know I started right after Super Bowl 50. I covered the ring party. One of my first things was the Broncos trip to the White House. And a lot of those guys were still on the team in 2016. And I think what stands out to me, you of course have the season, and there were some really impressive, memorable wins. Like, that's what happens. I was talking to our old friend Suze the other day.
Big Suze.
And I was like, when you have losing seasons, the losses kind of fade away or they get jumbled. And I would have a hard time telling you, even though I remember things sometimes, I would have a hard time like specifically telling you, hey, this happened in 2020 or this happened in 2018. Because when you don't make the playoffs, it's a little tougher to remember those things.
Yeah.
2015, I mean, there's all sorts of moments that stand out, right? Like you've got the fumble return for a touchdown by Bradley Roby in Kansas City to kick the season off. You've got this dominant performance against the Green Bay Packers at home between two undefeated teams that I think they held Aaron Rodgers to 77 yards passing. It's not minus 10, but 77 is really good as well. You've got Peyton Manning jogging back on the field against the then San Diego Chargers in Week 17, and the Broncos are funny enough. I was actually covering the Dolphins-Patriots game that same day that the Dolphins had an upset win. The Broncos win in Denver. They end up switching places with the Patriots to get the 1 seed. Wow. Kind of a little bit of
full circle magic. I mean, it is October.
That's true. It wasn't then, but it is now. And then obviously each game was just so dramatic in the playoff run. The game against the Steelers where you've got a late fumble recovery from the Broncos when it looks like the Steelers are potentially going to put the game, either take the lead or put the game away. You've got the Patriots AFC Championship where Peyton Manning looks like vintage Peyton Manning early in the game, couple touchdowns to Owen Daniels. Yeah. And then, Brady was hit more than a dozen times. There's that, Vaughn has an interception, a couple of fourth down stops. One, Chris Harris makes a great tackle. And then there's of course, the final 2-point conversion where it gets batted up in the air and Roby grabs it. And then, of course, Super Bowl 50.
Yep.
I remember where I was. I was in Miami covering some Miami sports for an internship before I came out here. And I remember being I don't even know whose house I was at, but I was at some random person's house. And it wasn't like a thrilling game because the Broncos just kind of crushed them, like from the very beginning, the defense just swarmed Cam Newton. And I think it's easy now to say, oh, that's one of the best defenses in NFL history. And it's true. But at the time, like the Panthers, I think a lot of people expected Cam Newton.
Number one
offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. To MVP, Cam Newton to come in.
Number one pick against number 2 pick.
Yeah. And I think people expected Cam and the Panthers to come in and win the football game and have their way against the defense. And man.
But defense wins championships.
Defense wins championships. It won the championship. And then, man, there's just so there's all the games that stand out, but then the people, right? The personalities. And we'll talk about DT in a second, but like Aqib Talib, just fiery.
Yeah.
Like we said, ripping chains off Michael Crabtree and Chris Harris, who had that underdog mentality and always had a chip on his shoulder from being undrafted. The other guys in the no-fly zone, like Darian Stewart, was this soft-spoken, has a Southern accent, and then he goes on the field, and it's like, man, this is a different person.
Yeah.
You could Demarcus Ware, just great on the podium, terrific quotes. He was always, you never knew what he was going to say, and it was awesome, and also like one of the nicest people you've ever met, a Hall of Famer. So to cover him, Vaughn, of course, who is still playing and still the Broncos' all-time leading sack leader. That sounds smart and intelligent. Nice job, Aric. But like Vaughn and his off-season tour after that Super Bowl, he was on every show and the chicken farming and became this celebrity. And then I mean, you could just go on and on. Emmanuel Sanders, just toughness personified in a receiver. He would lay out over the middle, from the Derek Wolfe, who was paired with Von Miller, and they would kind of, Derek would do the dirty work and Von would go in there and clean things up.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of guys, and CJ Anderson, his role late in the season, Brock Osweiler coming in and helping that team, survive while Peyton Manning was out. Manning capping his career with a Super Bowl. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting people because like Danny Trevathan, Brandon Marshall in the middle of that defense. There's all sorts of guys.
So many.
The offensive line, like finding a way. There's all sorts of people that made this possible. And of course, how could I forget Gary Kubiak, who's one of my favorite people. And the job he did to come in and, I think it's easy to, I think the Broncos got a lot of fans because of that win, but I think people forget that like they went to the Super Bowl in 2013 and then 2014 have that early exit. And I think there's this sense of like, are we going to find a way with Peyton Manning to do this?
Yeah.
And Gary Kubiak came in that year and handled the season masterfully in terms of balancing the injury situation with Peyton Manning, finding a way to get this team to respond, putting him in at the exact right moment, and then the Broncos go on this run. And, Brandon McManus makes all his kicks during the postseason. You could just go through, like, everything's got to go right to some degree for you to win a Super Bowl. And then you're bonded forever, Elisa, right? Like we heard, I think Cortland Sutton said on Wednesday that there's a bond that you get when you win something like that. And now these guys get a chance to come back and celebrate, the coaches, the staff, the players, and they get to set an example maybe for this team who has that goal of winning a world championship of, hey, this is what you can be, and this is how you can be celebrated if you can find a way to make it happen. Yeah,
when I talked to David Bruton, he mentioned, I asked him how does he feel about what Denver's building here, and he smiled really big because he's like, I mean, look, I'm a defensive guy, and he's like, I see a lot of what we were doing with the no-fly zone and defense in 2015 to what this team is doing now. And he's like, and obviously, he's like, one of the good things to see is like, he's like, we only needed like 2 seconds because then we would just swarm the quarterback and get turnovers and have a lot of fun out there. And Super Bowl 50 was very special because, I mean, as a fan at the time when I was, I was reeling from the loss against the Seahawks. And then, ironically, when I did
don't talk about that.
When I did Sunday Night Football, I had to go to the Seahawks facility, and I was just like, I don't want to look at anything here. But it was very special, and I think when you look back at just how everything played out, and the number one defense going against, the number one defense going against the number one offense. I mean, Cam Newton, like you mentioned, was MVP that season, I believe. And all the recipe was there for like one of the greatest Super Bowls to happen. And the defensive performance that you put on, and just like the sheriff going out on top with a Super Bowl ring, it's special. And I think the emotions of that is definitely going to be felt throughout Broncos country. And to your point, I think it's even better because the Broncos went out and handled business 3-0 over the last 3 games from Monday night, and then 2 road games to come back here at 4-2, really kind of right in the ship. I think it's added motivation. I mean, we saw last time Alumni Weekend happened, I believe it was the throwback against the Raiders, where Pat Surtain had that big pick six right in front of Champ Bailey after he had met him during the pregame. So I know that it's going to be added motivation, whether they feel it or say it or not, to have like these legends in the building who accomplish what the Broncos are trying to accomplish now.
Yeah, and I think there is this added juice for guys of like, if you're Pat Surtain, if you're Riley Moss, if you're Talanoa Hufanga, you're playing in front of a secondary that's considered one of the best of all time. Like, you're
period.
Period. Yeah, like you're naturally going to raise your level of intensity. If you're, Jonathan Cooper or you're Nick Bonito, and like, I know Vaughn's not there, but like, hey, if you're playing in front of these guys that got after the passer that way
and played with
Vaughn, in front of DeMarcus Ware, like, you're going to, I think, naturally be a little jacked up, juiced up. If you're and for Courtland Sutton in particular, like he said, I've been waiting for this day for a long time in terms of DT's Ring of Fame induction. I bet we see a fired up, motivated Courtland Sutton, and it wouldn't surprise me if he goes off. Just the type of player he is, so emotional, and like it would just feel fitting if he's able to have a big game on the day that they're honoring Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
And it'd just be good to see some of these guys. And while there is this celebration of Super Bowl 50, and I think the team will be excited and energized, Sean Payton said he's going to talk to them about, what that team accomplished and what they mean. But there is also this kind of sadness that DT is not going to be there. And, they'll celebrate his Ring of Fame induction, mentioned his parents will be there, but there is like a
somber feeling.
Exactly. Like, it's sad that he's not going to be able to be there to enjoy that moment. But I think everyone will be celebrating him. And there's, from a DT perspective, all the things he did on the field and where he ranks in franchise history in terms of receiving yards and touchdowns. He's got the single season receiving record. He's got the single game receiving record. He's got one of the most memorable plays in NFL history with his 80-yard touchdown from Tim Tebow. There's all that on the field, and then there's so many examples of him off the field just being a terrific person, whether it's volunteering at the Denver Broncos Boys and Girls Club, whether it was making sure that no matter who you were, whether you were like me, an intern or an entry-level staffer, or Peyton Manning or Gary Kubiak, like he treated everyone the exact same, just such joy for life. And I think we heard it from Courtland Sutton on Wednesday where, DT used to bring donuts in for people on Saturday mornings and said, hey, Courtland, like, this is your role now. And Courtland, I think, initially was like, oh, is this a rookie thing that I've got to do? And then it quickly became clear, no, after DT was traded, like, I'm going to do this to keep honoring him. And then you lose DT, and it becomes this weekly reminder of a teammate, of a friend. And Courtland and DT didn't like play together that long, right? Like, Courtland gets drafted in April, and then DT is traded by what I think middle of November, early November. Like that's in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long. But just look at the impact that DT made on Courtland in such a short amount of time. I think that speaks to who DT was, and now Courtland gets this reminder every week of his friend and his teammate. And I think everybody has a chance this weekend. Certainly. Fans who love to watch DT, but those of us that got a chance to get to know him, like it's an emotional weekend. I think it'll be as emotional as 2021, right after he passed, when the Broncos play the Lions, they paint the logo on the field. they run the first play. It's actually Cortland who's not on the field. They leave an empty spot for DT, and then they go and they just beat the brakes off the Lions. And I remember Justin Simmons, who was one of the guys who was close with DT, gets an interception, runs over, puts the ball down on the 88. And, like, that was an emotional weekend. Peyton Manning outside DT's memorial that kind of was set up for him. That all is, like, clear as day to me, even a few years later. I hope that this weekend is, and I'm sure it'll be sad in some ways, but I hope it's also a celebration of DT, because that moment was I think purely sadness, right? And this, I hope, is, we wish he was here, but let's celebrate DT and let's honor him as a person, him as a player, and then hopefully go out and channel that energy to get a big win, because nothing DT would have wanted to do more, right, than get a win at home in front of Broncos country. So it'll be an emotional weekend, and seeing all those guys, having his parents here, but it should be a great weekend too, because DT deserves this honor, certainly, and really, outside of, I think, Peyton Manning, right? Like, he's the first Super Bowl guy to go in the Ring of Fame after Peyton. So, in the 18 to 88, you've got that scholarship that Peyton Manning does, and does a scholarship at Georgia Tech. I mean, the way that people have continued to honor DT over the last several years is really heartwarming, and I think that's not going to go away, right? Like, whether it's Cortland with the donuts or scholarships or whatever else, the Boys and Girls Club legacy, people are going to continue to honor DT, and that makes it so he's not here with us, but he's never really gone.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously growing up in Los Angeles, being a Broncos fan and watching DT, it was very special to actually visit the Denver Boys and Girls Club where he used to volunteer, and they told me, like, he would just show up. Like, there weren't like planned events. Some of them were, but, like, sometimes he would just come and hang out with the kids for a little bit and surprise them by just appearing. He never really wanted the spotlight. He just wanted to make a difference. And to have that up close personal experience was really special for me. Just walking around, knowing that DT was walking around here and, playing with the kids and making sure that they were seen and heard and know that they're special was really great. And when I talked to David Bruton about that, and, I said, why is it important for you not only to volunteer, but to carry on, DT's legacy? And he mentioned that this is what it's all about. We're blessed to have all these things, and DT knew that he was blessed, and he felt it in his heart to give back. And so for me to be there and support and be there, he's like, you never know who the next DT is going to be. And so if we can be here and spread his message and say who he was and who he is as a person, that's only going to help. And the Ring of Fame is really special because you got to think, people that aren't even fans, they just come to Denver to visit. They come to Empower Field to visit, and they see and they can read about the legacy of who Demaryius Thomas was. I mean, his reach is big, obviously, across football and across Denver and different parts of Broncos country. But when you're cemented in legacy like that, I think it's very special. And to your point, he was always cemented, but now to have it be official, I know Cortland Sutton, as you had mentioned, is very excited for this game and for this moment, for him to get that recognition. So it's going to be very emotional on Sunday. It's going to be very fun on Sunday. Alumni weekend, I feel like, is always fun. It's always busy, lots to do, lots of coverage that we're going to have for you guys on denverbroncos.com. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned, this team, whether it's the Super Bowl 50 team coming back, Alumni coming back, celebrating DT's memory, they want to win, because that is exactly what the Broncos are looking to do to improve to 5-2 on the season after coming off that 13-11 win over the Jets. When you look at just how this defense was playing and how this defense can perform, I mean, we can't even go through the numbers again because it was pretty impressive what they did, just against Justin Fields. I mean, you mentioned earlier, like 9 sacks, 15 QB hits, 7 tackles for loss, 4 passes to defense, and -10 net passing yards allowed. Obviously, Jonathan Cooper got AFC Defensive Player of the Week from his performance against the Jets. And now they're going to go against a rookie quarterback in Jaxson Dart, who, I mean, just got a big win against the Eagles, 34-17. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Broncos are able to attack him.
Yeah, I think, and I want to get kind of big picture in a second here about kind of being back at home, but it'll be interesting to see how this Broncos defense fares against Jaxson Dart, who certainly had some momentum the last couple of weeks. I do think it's worth noting both of those wins that the Giants have gotten came at home. The lone road start that Dart has made was in New Orleans. I believe the Giants had 5 turnovers and they lost that game in New Orleans. And so, how does Jaxson Dart handle playing on the road? How do the Broncos make life difficult now that they're back at home on defense? We saw the last time the Broncos were at home against the Bengals, just the way that they were able to jump the snap and time up the snap count and really make life difficult on Jake Browning for Cincinnati. And it's no easy task as a rookie quarterback to come in here and win. The last 6 rookie quarterbacks to start a game in Denver on the road. I brought this up in the office, and I said, who's the last rookie quarterback to win in Denver? And our colleague Kate said Bo Nix, that's correct. Kate was correct. I meant opposing quarterback, but I should have specified. So that's on me. But the last 6 opposing quarterbacks to come in to Empower Field at Mile High as rookies have lost. You have to go back to 2019 before you find Gardner Minshew, who was the last rookie to win for Jacksonville. And so, clearly it's no easy task. I would say a couple things stand out to me when it comes to Jaxson Dart. One is the scrambling ability, and he has the highest scramble percentage of any quarterback in 2025. He's got 116 rush yards on 15 scrambles, and he's going to try to make some plays with his legs. He's the 3rd quarterback since 1950 with 50 rush yards in each of his first 3 starts. The other guys, Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. He leads all quarterbacks with 30 carries and 167 rush yards since becoming the starter. So he's going to try to make plays on the ground. I think they realize that. I do think it helps the Broncos that they've seen Jalen Hurts 2 weeks ago. They saw Justin Fields last week. And so they've had that recipe. And Jonathan Cooper said, we've seen guys that can scramble. Like, we kind of know what that challenge is. But the key with Dart, to me, is the pressure, right? And any young quarterback, and Vance Joseph talks about this, he hasn't this year, but in the past, sometimes you don't want to necessarily blitz a rookie quarterback because it makes it clear for them of here's where I've got to go.
Yeah.
But Vance Joseph this year has done such a good job of disguised pressures, of simulated pressures where in Philadelphia, think of that one. You bring 6-7 guys up to the line of scrimmage, and then everybody backs off except for Jaquan McMillan and Talanoa Hufanga, and now, boom, Jalen Hurts doesn't know where the pressure is coming from, doesn't know where the coverage is. The Broncos get a big sack and end up winning the football game. That, to me, could be a big thing this week is those simulated pressures that Vance Joseph brings. And here's a good stat to kind of keep your eye on. Jaxson Dart, when pressured, has a 48.6 passer rating, which is 5th lowest in the NFL. He completes 48% of his passes and has one touchdown with 2 interceptions. With no pressure, 73% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a 104.1 passer rating. The Broncos, of course, have the highest QB pressure percentage in the league, and I do think it's worth noting that they don't always have to blitz to bring that pressure because so much of it is those simulated pressures. So when we talk about Jaxson Dart, and listen, he's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited to see what he can bring. Cam Scatabo is kind of, like we said at the top, he's this ball of energy. He's like a Tasmanian devil kind of situation and a good football player. But like I think it starts with, can the Broncos put Jaxson Dart in tough situations and bring pressure at him in different ways? If they can do that, I kind of like maybe the Broncos' ability to get after him. But I also think it could be a defensive battle because the Giants' front, in a lot of ways, is just as dangerous defensively.
It's funny you mentioned about Cam and JFM. They asked him about him, and he's like, "Well, Cooper's kind of our version of that." He's like, Jonathan Cooper is our guy that's just gonna go out and just disrupt, intensity. I mean, you've seen on Sights and Sounds, which if you haven't checked it out, make sure you guys do. We post them after wins. Most of the time, Cooper is in there giving some kind of speech. And just like the intensity that he brings to the field, I think adds to this defense and what they're able to produce. Yesterday, you asked Pat Surtain specifically about takeaways. Yeah. And given how Jaxson Dart has caused turnovers due to pressure, how do you see this team taking advantage of that? I know Pat spoke about that, about when turnovers come, they come in bunches.
Yes, I think there's 2 things. And like he's only got 2 interceptions. I don't know how many fumbles. I don't have that in front of me. Or if those were other people. I know Scatabo had a fumble a couple weeks ago. one, you need the takeaways, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Broncos haven't forced a turnover since week 3 against the Chargers. And I believe that was in the first half, if I remember correctly. So you got to find a way to create more takeaways, because winning the turnover battle when you get in some of these games could be the difference between winning and losing. And the Broncos, give them credit. They've won the last couple of weeks despite losing the turnover battle. They lost it against the Jets, found a way to win. They lost it against the Titans, certainly, found a way to win. I believe they lost it against the Bengals and found a way to win. That's the sign, I think, of a – I'm just talking about we need to force takeaways. It's a sign of a good team when you can lose the turnover battle and still win.
Because that's going to come at some point. The takeaways are going to come.
Yeah, and if you're not reliant on takeaways, I think it's a good sign. But when you get in a big game, you may need a play here or there. So you want to see them start getting that. I will say defensively, I think it's encouraging and kind of, I just talked about big picture, the turnover margin, but the Broncos are winning and playing good defense despite not having takeaways. I think back to a few years ago, the Broncos defense was generating a bunch of takeaways during that win streak in 2023, but the takeaways were kind of like teams were moving the ball, but the takeaways were kind of saving the Broncos. This is very different, where even though the Broncos aren't having takeaways, they've got the top third down defense, top fourth down defense, top red zone defense. They're just dominant all across the board, and they're not relying on takeaways. And so then you think, okay, this is already a really good defense no matter what. If you can add some turnovers into the mix, think of how good they can be then. And so to me, it's not like a huge concern, and it's probably why it hasn't been a bigger talking point, is because the Broncos defense has still been playing well. And some teams, like Jacksonville, for example, the first few weeks of the season, they forced a bunch of turnovers and were winning football games. Then last week they played Seattle, I think, weren't able to do the same thing takeaway-wise. They lose the football game. If that were the case for the Broncos, you might be concerned. But given that they're still playing good defense, I'm not as worried about it. But I do think when they come, and they will at some point, like you said, then this defense could start to be just insane, because you're getting the pass rush. You're good on third down. You're good in the red zone. And now if you can add a few takeaways per game, that's when you could get to like really rolling. In the words of head coach Champagne, what are you afraid of? What are you what is there to be afraid of? I mean, this defense has been so impressive. I mean, we look at the numbers and the sacks and things like that. And I think it's important to note that Pat Surtain also mentioned, like, takeaways are, despite all the success that they're having, takeaways are still a big part of practice. Like, they're still going out there and trying to, knock balls loose and, try to make that extra play. You brought up a good point about Talanoa Hufanga against the Jets, and the fact that as Garrett Wilson's fallen to the ground, he kind of just extends his hand out to just try to cause any kind of disruption. So although it's not a takeaway, you clearly see the effort is there on every play to cause some kind of disruption, some kind of to break up the rhythm, basically. And so when you look at this defense, I mean, 30 sacks so far this season. Like, we're going into week 7, right? And so the fact that this team already has 30 sacks after posting 61 last year, was it 61 sacks last year? 63 last year, I believe.
Yeah. So the fact that they're already almost at the halfway mark is really impressive what this team is doing. And obviously we mentioned how Jonathan Cooper won AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Nick Bonito won it the week before. We had mentioned that tandem is so special. And the fact of what they're able to do, it's like, who do you prepare for? It's like, you prepare for Nick, you have Cooper. If you prepare somehow for both of them, you have Zach Allen in the middle, who leads the NFL, or actually tied, I believe, with Nick Bonito for QB hits. Since 2024, he leads with, I think, 24 QB hits or 56. It's a high number. I have to look that up. But just when you look at just this pass rush and what they're able to do, it's really hard to see areas that they can improve, even though every week they're saying we got to get better.
Yeah, the defense has been really good. I wonder if the pass rush has been so good that maybe that's even limiting turnovers to some degree. Like,
yeah,
there's nowhere and there probably should have been a turnover against the Jets, that Garrett Wilson catch that Pat Surtain knocked out. I thought that was a fumble. I think a lot of people thought that he had possession. Wasn't ruled that way. But, they're getting to Justin Fields so fast that there's no time for him to throw and have an interception, right? So,
and Allen leads the NFL with 56 QB hits since 2024.
Okay. But yeah, I think that you look at that that defensive effort. And then you think about at home, Bo Nix has been, as we transition to the offensive side of the ball, Bo Nix has been good at home, especially against sub 500 teams. I believe, what would it be now? I believe 6-1, 7-1 against sub 500 teams in his career. We mentioned the Broncos have a 7-game home winning streak, which is the longest active winning streak in the NFL. I think the key is against this defensive front, which is, you've got all sorts of guys from Dexter Lawrence to Kayvon Thibodeau to, I believe, 2nd overall pick, Abdul Carter.
Mm-hmm.
They come in waves, and Sean Payton mentioned Wednesday, this is a different sort of defensive front than anyone we've seen this year from a talent standpoint. So the Broncos have to be ready for that. Brian Burns, didn't mention him, but 7 sacks. So I believe he's 3rd in the NFL in sacks, right behind Bonito. So that's kind of something to watch there of Bonito versus Burns and kind of this showdown on Sunday. But Bo, we talked about it on Monday, and then I guess we never posted it. So
you talked about something.
I thought that Bo actually made had a decent game on Sunday against the Jets, and the fumble by Troy, that's not his fault, right? And then you're talking about if that play is a completion, the drive continues. If J.K. Dobbins isn't able to haul in a pass on 3rd down and that drive continues, I think you were just, if there's no false start or if there's no holding call, then you've got a deep play to Troy that can maybe set up points. So I think you're much closer to this offense clicking, but penalties have to be something that the Broncos offense is focused on improving this week. Handling that defensive front and running the football, to maintain some balance is important, I think. And then just, Bo he's had some good home games. So excited to see him kind of find a way to have a big game, and excited to watch him play. But it could be, we'll see, could be a game where you got to take what's there against a talented defensive front. But that also, I think, plays to Bo's strengths where he gets the ball out quick. He doesn't take a lot of sacks. He has avoided turnovers, for the most part, especially the last few weeks. And so if you're the Broncos offense, if you can kind of take advantage of those strengths, I could see you having some success. And then we talked about Cortland and how I would think that he could have a big game kind of in DT's honor, playing with some emotion, playing with some extra energy and extra boost there. So it should be a good one. I'm excited to see what the Broncos offense is able to do. But again, it won't be easy with that front. And then from a red zone standpoint, we know the Broncos have the best red zone defense, but the Giants defense since week 4 has the best red zone defense. They've allowed 20.3 points per game since week 4, which is 7th in the NFL. They forced 4 takeaways since week 4, tied for 7th in the NFL, and that aligns with Jaxson Dart coming into the lineup. Yeah. So this team is motivated in general. They're, I think they're, I don't want to say feeling themselves in like a bad way, but they believe in Jaxson Dart, and we saw it last year with when Bo Nix started to get rolling. It energized the whole team. I think the same is the case for the Giants. They obviously beat the Eagles in prime time, and it'll be a fun one to watch.
I think the run game too is also going to be very exciting to see. Obviously, with what Cam has done over the last, I think 3 of his 5 rushing touchdowns came last week against the Eagles, and so when you look at how his dynamic style, we talked to a few guys in the locker room about it, and they were just saying, like, we're going to have to really wrap him up. Like, he's not a guy that is going to fall down easy. Like, we're going to have to, like, hit him in a way where, like, we can actually wrap around him and drag him down because he just runs very hard. And when I talked to Nick Bonito, he mentioned, like, a team is dangerous when they're kind of all just playing with that intensity, that heart, that momentum. Like, all that matters. Like, yes, the X's and O's playing and having good game plans and stuff, but he was like, sometimes when you just believe in one another and you guys are playing hard and you guys are focused, like, you guys can start building on those explosive plays. He's like, so we need to limit that. We need to limit Jaxson Dart being able to run around. We need to limit the big plays that they have with the run game. And he's like, and that starts with all their backs. He gave credit to all the running backs and the fact that he was like, we need to make sure that we stop the run game. And they've played pretty good running backs, this defense has, over the last few weeks. And so when you look at Bo and Court and what J.K. Dobbins can do, you're kind of looking for that offensive game where they can really kind of sustain those drives, keep drives alive. Quinn Miner spoke about penalties after the win against the Jets, where he said, like, you don't really realize how these 10-5 penalties are hurting you until, the game is over, you get the win, you're looking at the stats, and you're like, wow, that 10-yard penalty really killed that drive. Oh, wow, this 5-yard penalty really put us in 3rd and long. And he's like, you kind of put it in perspective, like, even though they only had 6 penalties, I think, for 35 yards against the Jets or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, it's the fact that those 35 yards are going to kill certain drives that could have led to points. And so I think that is a big emphasis for this team this season, this week. And I think for Bo, is just he's so focused. And even when his press conferences, like he understands what's being asked of him. And Cortland Sutton always praises him about his level-headedness. And I think that's a big testament to the culture and what's being built here of, like, we're always going to take it one game at a time, and this is why, so that we don't get overwhelmed by previous stats or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I do think when you watch the Cincinnati game, when you watch the Philly fourth quarter, when you watch the first quarter against the Jets, like, you can see the potential offensively, right? Mm-hmm. And particularly the first half against Cincinnati, like I said, the fourth quarter, the first quarter against the Jets. And I think that the Broncos are close to having that be more sustained. And it really just is a penalty here or there. It's one, missed, I don't know if it's an assignment or just execution, but this is not a team that is incapable by any means. Like, I think you see from these stretches what they're able to do. Now it's just, as you go along in the season, how do you find a way to sustain that over the course of 60 minutes? And my guess is that we're close to that of it being sustained, of having one of those big games, because there were a couple times last year at home, whether it was the Falcons, the Panthers, like where the Broncos came out and, like, put it together. And I don't know if it'll be this week, but I do feel like this is a stretch where you've got to start putting it together in that way. And I also think it's important to have, like you mentioned, that one game mindset of, kind of my thoughts are, you've got, like, we're allowed to talk about, hey, you've got 4 of the next 5 at home, and
huge,
and you got to find a way to start stacking some wins. But if you're the Broncos, you can't think that way, right? Like, you've got to have that singular focus of, this week's the Giants, and then we'll figure out who's next after that. I do think one underrated thing this week, and we'll see what happens. Dre Greenlaw was designated for return on Wednesday. He was a limited participant on Wednesday, and we don't know yet what his practice status will be Thursday or his game status. But if he's able to return, I'm really excited. And whether it's, if it's not this week, then we'll talk about it next week. But if it is this week, here's a guy that we've talked about all offseason as being a potential difference maker in the middle of this Broncos defense.
1,000%. Yeah.
And you talk about takeaways, you talk about stopping the run. If you can add a guy like Dre Greenlaw in there, then, man, this defense could start to be really special. And I also think you're starting to see, knock on wood, but this free agent class, like, Evan Ingram is coming alive.
Yeah.
Talanoa Hufanga, I think, has been terrific this
all
season.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins, didn't have as much production this past week, but generally this year has been really good. And so you look at those guys who are kind of maybe the core 4, if you will, and obviously Sherfield has been contributing as well. But, like, that's kind of these last couple of weeks is what you've been looking for from those free agent additions. If you can add Greenlaw to that mix and he starts to contribute defensively, that'll be really, really impressive. And so he'll be a guy to watch this weekend if they can, if he plays. We'll see. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, we'll see.
Who knows? But but if he does go out there, he'll be a guy that I'm excited to see play.
I mean, we saw how this defense played better with Malcolm Roach coming back, and just just the fact of what he brings to the table from a leadership perspective, intensity, and how he disrupts offenses too. So I mean, it's to your point, it is crazy to think that this defense is still going to get better when certain pieces come back. Before we get out of here, I mean, big picture wise, again, they can't talk about it. We can. The fact that the next 4 of the next 5 games will be at home, that's the Giants at home, the Cowboys at home, on the road against the Texans, and then back-to-back division games at home before going into your bye week. I mean, big picture-wise, how much are you looking forward to that stretch and the fact that the Broncos have a great opportunity to go on a run and stack some wins?
I mean, you don't want to look too far ahead because you never know what could happen, right? Like if I looked at the schedule these past 6 weeks, I probably would have given you 4-2, but I don't know that I would have done it this way, right? Like, I don't know, and we said this, I don't know that I would have predicted that the Broncos would go on the road and beat the defending Super Bowl champions. I don't know that I would have had both of those losses in there where they were. Obviously, before the season, I think the Cincinnati game looked a little different with Joe Burrow as the quarterback. So who knows what these teams look like over the coming 4 or 5 weeks? Who knows what the Broncos look like over the coming 4 or 5 weeks? But that said, we've talked about many times that your goal has to be to, in my mind at least, like, you got to find a way to be at least 500 on the road and hopefully better, but like at least split your road games. And then at home, really rack up wins. And like everyone in the NFL, we just saw with the Jets who almost beat you despite not having a win.
Yeah.
So every team in the NFL poses a challenge, but you do have in the next 4 weeks, 4 games against teams that are currently under 500. And like, can you find a way to win most of those games? All those games? I don't know. But because after the bye, then you've got back-to-back road games. You've got a tough one against Green Bay at home. Jacksonville is surging. That game at Kansas City will probably be as tough as any game you play all year. And then who knows, like, after the bye, that's a tough 6-week stretch. And so
it's a primetime game on 2 primetime games with Kansas City being on Thursday for Christmas and then Sunday Night Football against the Commanders.
Right. And again, the next 5, they could be just as tough. You never know how it's going to play out. But just on paper right now, from the strength of schedule perspective, this is where you kind of need to go on a run. And just imagine what that game against the Chiefs could be like in a few weeks if you're able to stack some wins here. I mean, if you're able to, and again, we're looking ahead, but can you be 8-2, 7-3? If you can do that, then you're looking at a situation where, based on the AFC kind of picture, you could be looking at the Kansas City Chiefs coming to Denver with first place in the division on the line, with first place possibly in the AFC on the line. Only the Colts have a better record right now, or excuse me, the Colts and the Steelers. Forget about the Steelers a little bit because they had their bye, so I didn't see them. But and again, see them? If the Broncos aren't focused, then you could drop several games and really kind of put yourself back. But I think one of the things I respect about this team and why Sean Payton is such a good coach is he finds a way each week to motivate the team and get them locked in. And so while we're looking ahead and looking at kind of this next stretch, he's got them dialed in on this week. But man, you kind of look at this stretch and think this is where you can go on a run. So excited to see how the next few weeks pan out and need Broncos country to be loud, because part of the reason you look at this stretch of games and think, hey, we could do something is they're at home. And you have the Giants at home. You have the Cowboys at home. You've got the Raiders at home in prime time. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, who, if you want to beat, you want to be the best, you want to win the AFC West, you got to beat those guys. And so having that home field advantage should be helpful. But need Broncos country to be loud starting this week as we honor the Super Bowl 50 champions, honor DT, and try to get a big win.
Disrupt their huddle is what Broncos country is known for, and I love the orange wall that's been created this season. It's very fun to watch. The guys love it. I mean, we're here to be like your connection from the team to the fans out there in Broncos country, and they appreciate how loud Broncos country is. They talk about it in the locker room. They talk about it after games. It doesn't go unnoticed. And when you're going into this stretch, yes, the altitude, yes, all these things, but they also want to make it really hard for teams to play here. And so far this season, they've been able to do that. I mean, it gets loud. I'm in the control room, getting ready for Red Zone highlights, and I can feel the stadium shake as they're stomping, on third down or when they yell incomplete. Like, I'm in a room in the back, for part of the game when I'm doing highlights, and I can hear how loud they are through walls, through concrete, through all that stuff. So we're going to need you guys to bring that energy. Wear your chains proudly. It's heavy.
It is heavy. My neck hurts.
Well, I'm just kidding. You got a few chains on. So, but again, Broncos country, this was another episode of Altitude Advantage. Make sure you guys head to the stadium early. Again, as Aric mentioned earlier, 11:30 for the Ring of Fame induction of Demaryius Thomas, and then make your way into the stadium to get this amazing giveaway. Stop by the team store to take part in purchasing the Super Bowl 50 capsule, which includes buying this hat, buying the other chain that Aric's wearing, and this sweater. Again, remember, items sold separately. I don't want you going there like Elisa said it was all a bundle. It is not. You have to buy them separately, but you can look as amazing as we do on the podcast. So once again, make sure you guys comment, leave your thoughts, leave your favorite memories of Super Bowl 50, leave your favorite memories of watching DT play. We're gonna hopefully get to some next week, but make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And for all the latest, continue to visit DenverBroncos.com.